The wind over Kyoto carried an unusual chill on the night of the 2025 Blue Dragon Awards. And of coldness that made even the brightest lights feel sharpened. Reporters had already gathered in tight clusters, testing their cameras, rehearsing their lines, sensing that this ceremony would not be an ordinary one. There was a kind of noise that comes only before a storm, a hush that trembles, a whisper that travels from one press booth to another. Every journalist could feel that something was brewing long before the cameras started rolling. And it all began the moment Song Hye-kyo stepped out of her car. She appeared with a calm elegance, wrapped in a silver-white dress that captured light but strangely kept shadows close. Her shoulders were straight, her chin gently raised. Her eyes, those eyes that had mesmerized Korea for decades, held a quiet heaviness. She paused for the photographers, offering a soft smile. But even that smile appeared cautious, as if she were calculating each movement down to the millimeter. Her team walked half a step behind, tightly coordinated, exchanging quick glances that suggested they were prepared for something unexpected. And within seconds, that something took shape. The red carpet roared as another wave of flashes exploded from the opposite end. The crowd shifted, leaning forward. And someone near the front whispered, "They're here." The phrase traveled through the air like a spark jumping from one wire to another. And then, through the blinding lights, the silhouettes of Hyun and Ye-jin came into focus, walking side by side, smiling in that effortless way that always seemed to calm the air, except tonight. Tonight, the air tightened instead. Their entrance was majestic, confident, charismatic. Reporters cheered, fans screamed, and cameras trembled in the hands of photographers desperate not to miss a single frame. Yet, from her corner of the red carpet, Song Hye-kyo froze for a brief second. It wasn't dramatic enough for the public eye, but for the trained lens of a reporter, that was all it took. Her gaze flickered, not long enough to be caught by broadcast cameras, long enough to be caught by the dozens of journalists who lived for moments like this. Her smile thinned, her posture stiffened, and then came the decision, silent, swift, unmistakably intentional. Instead of walking forward into the central photo zone, she shifted her steps, barely noticeable, angling herself away from the path that would have inevitably brought her within the same frame as Hyun and Ye-jin. Her manager leaned in subtly, whispering something that sounded like a confirmation, not a warning. And she nodded once. A small nod. Quiet admission. A decision made. From the press area, the movement seemed delicate, graceful even. Behind the velvet ropes, a ripple passed through the staff. Someone muttered to another, "Let's adjust the timing." Another staffer raised a hand, signaling to slow her entrance until the couple ahead had fully cleared the photo wall. It all happened so seamlessly that to a casual viewer, it would appear planned, natural, perfectly choreographed. But to those standing close, to those who had covered entertainment for years, it was impossible to overlook the deliberate rhythm. There are silences at award shows that are louder than applause. This was one of them. As Hyun and Ye-jin continued posing, radiating the signature poise that had once made them the center of a global phenomenon, the air around Song Hye-kyo grew heavier. Down briefly, adjusting the hem of her dress, then straightened, letting out the faintest breath. It wasn't nervous. It wasn't fear. It was an awareness that the past had chosen tonight to breathe again. Old rumors have long shadows, and those shadows tend to stretch across years, reappearing just when the spotlight is brightest. The whispers of a past connection between Song Hye-kyo and Hyun had never fully disappeared, lingering as a half-myth in the entertainment industry, resurfacing whenever the three stars appeared in the same conversation. Tonight, the whispers didn't just resurface, they hovered, waiting to erupt. Inside the hall, the tension followed her like a second dress. The seating arrangements were originally designed so that she would sit with a group of fellow actresses, comfortably away from media-triggering proximity. Yet barely an hour before the live broadcast, staff from the organizing team quietly rearranged seats. No official explanation was given. Chairs moved, cards replaced, and to an insider's eye, this kind of last-minute adjustment only ever happened for one reason: to avoid unnecessary headlines. Headlines have a way of writing themselves, especially when every movement is under the microscope. Song Hye-kyo entered the hall with the same elegance she always carried, but her eyes searched the room for safe angles, calculating which direction the cameras would swing. Which pockets of the hall offered a buffer zone? Which seats would create the least overlap with a couple who had just made history by winning matching acting awards? Even the way she sat, back straight, legs angled slightly away, seemed composed with quiet precision. And then came the moment that would dominate social media for the rest of the night. She stood at the edge of the fit towel, preparing to walk forward for her turn, when she suddenly halted. A staff member lifted a hand, signaling a stop. The red carpet layout monitors showed that Hyun and Song Hye-kyo were still within the broader camera range. And if she proceeded, even from a distance, there was a chance, just a chance, that the three would appear in the same wide-frame shot. In the world of Korean entertainment, that possibility alone was enough to trigger headlines, speculation, reignited scandals. She blinked once, quietly, her expression unreadable. Then she stepped back, retreating just one pace from the edge of the carpet. It was the smallest movement of the night, yet it was also the most explosive. Others gasped softly. Fans tilted their heads. X lit up with messages like, "Was that avoidance? Saw them. Did you see her step back? This timing is too perfect to be accidental." Even the slow-motion replay clips appeared online within minutes, complete with red circles and arrows pointing at her shift in movement. The comment sections multiplied by the second. Narrative spiraling faster than anyone in the hall could have predicted. During the live broadcast, the camera rarely lingered on her for too long, almost as if the production team had sensed the electricity thundering beneath the surface. Each time she glanced toward the aisle, each shift in posture became a topic of analysis among fans who were watching with eagle-like attention. Some defended her, insisting the step back was simply part of the show's timing. Others insisted it was intentional, an avoidance rooted in years of dormant whispers. Across the hall, Hyun and Song Hye-kyo remained calm, unaware, or perhaps carefully pretending to be unaware, of the storm that was beginning to swirl online. They smiled for cameras, exchanged greetings with fellow actors, played their roles as the celebrated couple of the night. The more their happiness shined, the more the shadows around Song Hye-kyo seemed to deepen. Media erupted as the show progressed. Hashtags climbed the trending ranks with frightening speed. Song Hye-kyo avoids, Blue Dragon drama, 3 stars 1 rumor. Clips, screenshots, zoom-ins, slowed frames, every corner of the internet dissected her behavior with forensic intensity. It wasn't malicious. It wasn't spiteful. It was fascination, the kind of fascination only Korean audiences have mastered, turning the smallest gesture into a national conversation. By the time the first half of the ceremony ended, one truth had become clear: this wasn't just an awards show anymore. It was a narrative, a story rewritten in real time, a revival of history that no one had expected to resurface tonight. And yet, as dramatic as the evening had already been, the most shocking moment, the moment that would send the entire hall into breathless silence, had not happened yet. That moment was waiting backstage. It was waiting behind a narrow corridor, under stark white lights, where the air felt strangely cold, where fate would bring the three of them within the same few meters, where silence would speak louder than words, where the most unforgettable scene of the night was about to unfold. The backstage area of the 2025 Blue Dragon Awards was nothing like the glittering hall that viewers saw on screen. Behind the stage curtains, the world shifted into a quieter, colder dimension. Long white hallways, echoing footsteps, staff moving with urgency while trying not to disturb the fragile order of the broadcast. The lights were harsher here, every small crease of a dress, every bead of sweat on a forehead, every tremor hidden under a calm smile. In this sterile corridor, away from the laughter and applause of the main hall, that the night took a turn no one could have anticipated. Song Hye-kyo stepped into the hallway, accompanied by her stylist and a young assistant holding a small clutched bag. Her steps were precise, almost delicate. If that grace was a subtle haste, she wasn't running. She would never do that. The rhythm of her walk was undeniably brisk, her eyes scanning the narrow passageway as if reading a map only she could see. She leaned slightly toward her assistant. "Route clear?" she asked in a quiet voice. The assistant nodded, though her expression betrayed uncertainty. "Yes, according to staff. The other presenters are backstage on the opposite side." But no one had anticipated that the segment schedule had shifted. No one had warned her that the timing had changed. No one told her that just around the corner, past a narrow black curtain, two silhouettes were already approaching from the opposite end. Hyun and Son Ye-jin were walking with their managers, headed toward the stage for their combined appearance. Expressions were calm, unaware of the collision course that destiny, or perhaps unfortunate timing, had laid out. Their staff spoke in low tones, discussing camera angles, lighting, a short message they would deliver before presenting the award. Unaware, unprepared, and unknowingly walking toward the quiet storm forming just meters away, a staff member pushed open the curtain to guide Song Hye-kyo through the hallway that would lead to the second fit towel. Once the curtain lifted, everything froze for a breathless second. She stopped, just 5 meters ahead. Hyunbin's profile was unmistakable, tall, poised, the kind of presence that filled the air even before he turned. Son Ye-jin walked beside him, her soft laughter echoing faintly like a melody in an empty room. The corridor tightened around them. For the briefest moment, no one moved. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, a strangely intrusive sound amid the silence that had suddenly engulfed the space. The staff closest to them stiffened, eyes widening, parting slightly. They all knew what it meant for the three of them to occupy the same narrow hallway. They all understood what a single photograph in this moment could imply. And Song Hye-kyo understood it, too. And in less than a second, a blink, a breath, a shift of air, her expression remained composed. Her steps did not falter. But something changed in her gaze. A shield came down. A barrier rose. And without saying a word, she changed direction. Her movement was subtle yet absolute, turning on the ball of her foot, gracefully pivoting toward the side corridor that led to a staff-only loading area. It wasn't part of her planned route. It wasn't linked for a filming. It wasn't even meant for celebrity traffic. But it didn't matter. She chose distance. Her stylist, startled, waited before following. The assistant rushed after her, heels clicking in uneven rhythm. A staff member tried to whisper, "That hallway is restricted." Stopped himself when he realized the alternative would create a situation far more chaotic. Behind her, Hyunbin's team stiffened. His managers murmured, "Should we pause?" Another whispered, "Give her space." Their voices were low, controlled. Careful, because careful was the only way to survive a night like this. Hyunbin himself slowed his steps but did not turn around. He already sensed what had happened. Perhaps he heard the soft rush of movement behind him. Perhaps he felt the shift in the air, the way the tension carved an invisible line down the hallway. Didn't look back. Did it change his trajectory? He simply moved forward with the same steady calm that had defined his public image for years. Son Ye-jin, noticing the sudden stiffness of the staff, glanced briefly over her shoulder, not enough to break composure, but enough to catch the afterimage of a silver dress disappearing into a side corridor. Her expression flickered, something unreadable passing through her eyes. She gave a gentle nudge to her manager, signaling that they should continue as planned. No words were exchanged, but everything had been said. In the dim side corridor, Song Hye-kyo stopped only when she reached the far wall, placing a hand lightly on the cool surface to steady herself. She wasn't breathless. She wasn't flustered. She was aware, keenly aware, that even the smallest moment tonight could become tomorrow's headline. Her stylist offered her a bottle of water, but she waved it away gently. "I'm fine," she whispered, though there was a quiet tightness under her voice. The three stood there for a moment, listening to the distant applause rolling through the main hall. The show was continuing. The cameras were spinning. The world was watching, but here, in this forgotten corner of the venue, time seemed to have paused for them alone. When she finally returned to the main path, she carried herself with the same elegance as always, expression untouched by the near collision. But the air around her team had changed. Every staff member walked a little closer, sharper, their steps more protective. Rumors were no longer a possibility, they were a certainty waiting to happen. And outside, the digital world was already spiraling. Clips from the red carpet incident had grown into full-blown theories. TikTok edits dissected her eye movements frame by frame. YouTube analysts recorded real-time commentary. Some debated whether her step back had been a matter of professionalism, discomfort, or unspoken history. By the time the second half of the show began, the audience inside the hall was buzzing with speculation. Even celebrities whispered quietly among themselves. glancing toward the aisle where Song Hye-kyo now sat with perfect composure. A few seats away, an industry insider leaned toward a colleague. "Did you see backstage?" "Yes," the colleague whispered, eyes darting forward. "That wasn't coincidence. It looked intentional." "Of course it did. No one wants unnecessary talk tonight." "Too late. The internet is already burning." Words faded into the atmosphere, absorbed by the velvet, by the lights, by the hundred eyes that pretended not to notice but saw everything. Social media analysts later described the situation as a nation divided. Some defended her actions as graceful or professional. Others insisted she was fanning the flames of old scandals by avoiding them so openly. And a third faction blamed the media entirely, accusing the industry of forcing narratives onto moments that were never meant to collide. Yet all of them agreed on one thing: this was the most unexpected drama of the night. When the show finally concluded, erupted in applause as winners posed for final photos. The stars began to move toward the exit, forming graceful lines of glittering gowns and suits. It was here, at the very end of the night, that the final, unforgettable moment occurred. Three found themselves in the same grand hall, the same shared space illuminated by chandeliers and camera flashes. Song Hye-kyo entered from one side, her shoulders lifted with calm confidence. Hyun and son Ye-jin entered from another, surrounded by staff congratulating them on their wins. For a heartbeat, the distance between them felt heavy. Like an invisible weight hung between three figures who carried different chapters of the same story. Song Hye-kyo kept her gaze forward, never once glancing to the right where the couple stood. Hyun maintained his measured expression, offering polite greetings to those who approached. Son Ye-jin exchanged soft smiles with colleagues, posture relaxed but her eyes sharp, as if aware of every movement around her. And then, because fate enjoys small cruelties, aligned for a single moment, three silhouettes standing in the same frame of the hall, separated only by a few people and a thick, unspoken history. Camera swung across the room, capturing the audience. Just for a fraction of a second, it brushed over them. Song Hye-kyo shifted her body slightly, turning toward the opposite side of the hall. Hyun leaned closer to his manager. Son Ye-jin adjusted the folds of her dress. The moment dissolved before it could fully blossom. Those who witnessed it felt a prickling awareness. Silence spoke the loudest when she finally left the venue, stepping into the cool night air. Reporters shouted her name, hoping for a last-minute statement, a stray expression, a hint of emotion. But she remained serene. "Good night," she said softly before getting into her car. She didn't add anything else. She didn't need to. Across Seoul, screens glowed with headlines, relations, and theories. What had been a simple awards night had transformed into a narrative dissected by millions. An intersection of past whispers and present choices. In the end, as the city quieted and the lights of Yeouido dimmed, one simple truth lingered. Only the people involved knew what truly lived in that silence. The rest of the world could only piece together the fragments left behind. The night had ended, yet the questions it raised would echo far beyond the walls of the Blue Dragon Awards.